I would like to thank again the organizer of this event, IDSA, and also the participants. I know it's too late. The last session, the last speaker would be a little bit difficult to tolerate. Thank you for being patient and being with us. Before going to my paper, I would like to have to raise 4 points, small points about what we heard just now. To me, it seems to be very ironic, very funny, and very sad to see that someone coming from a country with that dark record of waging wars, occupation, and having an arsenal of, who knows, a number of hundred warheads, nuclear warheads, standing here and talking about the threat coming from a country which has no nuclear weapon, no record of waging any war against any neighbor, and no dark record of any violating any neighboring countries. So this is the sad story. It's very, very interesting. I don't know if you share this view with me or not. The other point is the fact that most of the both speakers that were talking about the Iranian nuclear issue, they were talking basically about the information coming out from American intelligence, Israeli intelligence. I have a very clear-cut question. How on earth we can trust Americans who lie to the international community and to the Security Council and to their own people about Iraqi weapons of mass destruction? They waged a war, caused unprecedented damage to this country, destruction. About 1 million people were killed just because they said, we suspect that Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction. And I remember I saw a cartoon in one of the American papers showing Americans holding their warfare instruments over their shoulder, trying to cross the border from Iraq to Iran, 2003, 2004. And someone was asking the soldier that, where are you going? And he said, we were searching new weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. We didn't find it here. We're going to Iran to find it there. So it's, based on the assumptions and based on the intelligence gatherings coming from United States with that record, talking about the threat coming from Tehran, coming from Iran, an imaginary threat. This is so absurd, and I really don't know what to say about it. One last point before I go to my paper. Maybe it's bad news for Americans and for Israelis. The first one is the fact that if you are talking about the knowledge, let me tell you, Iranians have already told you. At first they did not believe it, but they started to believe it. The knowledge is there. The knowledge of industry, the science and technology of nuclear issue is in the minds and hearts of the Iranians. That's why they try to assassinate the scientists. I have on my laptop the first page of Haaretz, I guess it is, or the other Israeli newspaper. The day after they assassinated the scientist, they put the picture, the car, the scientist and the body there, and they said, a deterrent message to Tehran. This is a clear acceptance of the responsibility, and nobody in the world cared or condemned it. So these are true facts and very sad facts that we should think about before thinking the way that American and Israeli try to, to shape our mindset to think very much like they do think about any issue. Now let me go to the presentation. During the past decade, Iranian nuclear issue has been among the hottest news and the most controversial debates across the world. While the United States and its allies, contrary to the IAEA reports, have been accusing Iran of developing nuclear weapons, Iran has been insisting that its nuclear industry is solely for peaceful purposes to meet the nation's needs in energy and medical fields. This paper is an attempt to evaluate the logic and reasoning of both sides, Iran and its adversaries, trying to analyze and understand each side's view. The presentation will also look at different scenarios, debates in this regard, trying to assess the likely consequences accordingly. We can divide the debates or scenarios into two main categories, two main parts. The first one is the Iranian debate, which says Iranian nuclear project is not aimed at getting nuclear weapons. Here what I'm trying to say is just to let you know the Iranian version of the story, the Iranian explanation and the Iranian reasoning that why we really don't want the bomb. The bomb is not in our interest. Contrary to the assumption, it will violate our national interest and will endanger our vital national interest. First, why we should believe that Iran doesn't want a bomb and is not working towards making a bomb. Maybe the most important reason is the fact that Iran is a member of IAEA, a signatory of NPT, and Iranian nuclear industry and installation are all under full monitoring of IAEA inspectors. IAEA cameras are installed there and the routine inspections are taking place. A record number of 7,500 hours person visit made routinely by IAEA inspectors and around 100 visit without notice. And I want to remind you that for 2 years Iran suspended the whole activity, locked the doors. But the response from the West and the United States was not a friendly one. I mean, they wanted to push more and more and more until forcing Iran to get rid of the whole industry. The problem with this kind of logic, I mean the inspection, you may ask, okay, if they want to inspect more, let them do that. We don't have any problem by letting them do that. This number, 7,500 person hours, can go to 10,000. But what next? You know, they are searching for something. There is a logical paradox here. They are technically searching for something that doesn't exist. So they can go and go and go forever. Just imagine that today they give the Iranian government a list of 1,000 sites across Iran. And then go for it maybe 2, 3, 5 years and then come back without finding anything and then say, okay, here is the second list, 1,000 more sites. So that can go forever, for decades. How Iran can just stop its movement in this field of science and technology, how we can justify the issue with our nation. This is a national project in Iran. The national pride is at stake. So, I mean, this is not something that we can say, okay, we can deal with it, whatever you want. There is a number 2, and I would like to elaborate a little bit more than the other speakers about it. They mentioned roughly about it. Having nuclear weapon, according to Iranian understanding of Islamic Sharia, is against Islam. Iran and Islamic states. It is against basic teachings of Islam, and Iran's supreme leader issued a fatwa forbidding producing, possessing, and using nuclear weapon as haram, an illegitimate act of, which is against the principles of Islamic jurisprudence. This is a unique religious decree fatwa, and I really don't understand that why the West and Americans are not taking it seriously. It can have many positive effects in the future. And referring to this religious, it could open a debate even within the Islamic discourse. And I mean, this is kind of maybe a product of the ijtihad in Shia faith, and this is something that I think can pave the way for confidence building if they take it seriously. Reason number 3 is the fact that the public opinion in Iran is against nuclear weapons. The people on the streets, if you talk to them, if you have a chance to go to Iran, they really do not want. Maybe you can find some youth that say, okay, we want it, others got it, we want it also. But the average Iranian, they oppose going towards a nuclear weapon. And how Iran could move against the public opinion and convince them in a way that they are not going to accept it. Apart from the public opinion, there is a consensus amongst Iranian leadership and elites that we do not want and we do not need nuclear weapons. Iranian defense doctrine is based on a non-nuclear defense strategy, and this is something very important. Maybe the heart of the issue, which has raised by strategists saying that, no, Iran really want it. We don't believe that you don't want it. And when you say why, they say the deterrence. Deterrence is the key word. Iran want it as a deterrence. But Iranians have their own arguments. They say, yes, deterrence is good, but we already have the deterrence in many other ways, not by having or going toward nuclear bomb. How? How they have the deterrence without nuclear bomb? Here are a number of reasoning which Iranian will submit to you. First of all is the Iranian homemade advanced and sophisticated missile system. This is the key. I mean, you may say Iranian politicians are not wise if they don't want a weapon by which they can defend their country. And you mean by that weapon, nuclear weapon. But Iranians said we have, in our assessment, a weapon or a weapon system that we can defend our national integrity, the integrity of our national territories, and also to deter our enemies from attacking us. There is no secret about it. Everybody knows. The range, the number, the payload, and the accuracy, and more importantly, the self-sufficiency in producing these missile systems are all enough to make Iranian feel safe and secure enough, not wanting a nuclear bomb. Number 2, why the deterrent is already there, Iranian capability for asymmetric warfare. This is something that somehow can make up the lack of a nuclear weapon. Number 3 is the strong conventional army, a combination of a regular army and revolutionary guards, each of which has its own ground forces, air forces, and navy separately. So this kind of army makes, again, Iran feel enough secure in the face of the attack from any enemy. The other reason that Iranians are making a point of it is the fact that Iranian political system enjoys an overwhelming support of the nation. The other speaker talked about one of the main reasons behind the sanctions to put pressure on the Iranian society to rise against their politicians and ask for giving up surrender. This is not going to happen. And I want to draw your attention to an opinion poll by a very recent, just a few days ago, came out by Gallup, according to which I mean, the question was this, asking Iranian from outside through the phone. Gallup has conducted the research. They asked, do you think that Iran should go on with the nuclear issue in spite of the oil pressure problems that you are feeling in the market, the high prices? This is not done by Iranian government or by any biased center. Gallup has done that. 63% says yes. We do believe that our government should go ahead. So this is why Iran is somehow so sure that the political system enjoys an overwhelming support of the Iranian. This is something that Iran says it is much more important than atomic bomb for us. This is the secret of our survival, not the atomic bomb. Number 5, again from the Iranian perspective, the nuclear weapon do not bring you victory and do not make you safe and immune from collapse. Look at the Soviet Union, how it collapsed in spite of having an arsenal of thousands of nuclear bombs. Look at Israel, how failed to win its wars against Hamas and Hezbollah in spite of having a number of 100 warheads, nuclear, and how the US and NATO failed in Afghanistan. So if this is something true, that why we should go for make headache for ourselves in order to make, if it's a matter of winning the wars, none of those who have the nuclear arsenal manage to win the wars or to survive, by a few examples. Here is the scenario number B, number 2, and the big question, what if Iran joins nuclear states? So we can still talk about Iranian threat if tomorrow we wake up and see Iranian has joined the club. My argument here is that still it will not be a threat to regional and global peace and security. Why? A few reasons, as far as the time allows us to talk about it here. Iran is a rational actor in international relations. I want to quote directly from Kenneth Waltz. You know him? One of the architects of the neorealism or structural realism theory in international relations. He wrote in summer edition of the Journal of Foreign Affairs, this is the quote: the first prominent concern, which undergirds many others, is that Iranian regime is innately irrational. Despite a widespread belief to the contrary, Iranian policy is made not by mad mullah, but by perfectly sane ayatollahs who want to survive, just like any other leaders. Although Iran's leaders indulge in inflammatory and hateful rhetoric, according to Waltz, they show no propensity for self-destruction. It would be a grave error for policymakers in the United States and Israel to assume otherwise. This is the quote that I just brought here to support my own argument. He then goes on and says, it is Israel's nuclear arsenal. Please pay attention. This is very, very interesting. And it's not, the word of an Iranian, of a Muslim, or anybody else. It's Kenneth Waltz. It is Israel's nuclear arsenal, not Iran's desire for one, that has contributed most to the current crisis. Power, after all, begs to be balanced. What is surprising about the Israeli case is that it has taken so long for a potential balance to emerge. The other reason that even if Iran goes nuclear, still it doesn't pose any threat to the regional and international order is the fact that Iran has a very good and clean record in this area. During 8 years of Iran-Iraq war, although Saddam Hussein, with the support of Western countries, used chemical weapons against Iran, Iran never did. Although Iran had the power and the potential to retaliate the same way. So this is another record pointing to the fact that Iran record is actually not that black as others. One simple question here is, and I will just end up in 2 or 3 minutes, who are accusing Iran? The US, who has some 18 to 20,000 nuclear warhead, and actually the only state that used them twice. This is country number 1 who is accusing Iran and making cases against Iran and talking about threat. Israel, who has several hundreds of them, with dark record of occupation and waging wars. Now judge who is the threat, Iran or those countries. Iranian nuclear capacity doesn't cause an arms race and proliferation in the region. To go nuclear, there are 2 requirements for any country. First is psychological requirement, and then the actual and physical capability in terms of having the human capital and the knowledge and the infrastructure. Most of the countries in the region lack both or at least one of these. And again, this is the quote from Kenneth Waltz, in which he says, when Israel acquired the bomb in 1960s, it was at war with many of its neighbors. Its nuclear arms were a much bigger threat to the Arab world than Iran's program is today. If an atomic Israel didn't trigger an arms race then, there is no reason a nuclear Iran should do now. So these are the logics according to Kenneth Waltz. And finally, the way out of this stalemate. First, and this is the last one, negotiation and engagement based on the recognition of Iranian legitimate right to have the nuclear technology for peaceful purposes, according to this phrase of NPT. And I quote, "Nothing in this treaty shall be interpreted as affecting the inalienable," nobody can take it away, "inalienable right of all the parties to the treaty to develop, research, production, and use of nuclear technology for peaceful purposes without discrimination and in conformity with Article 1 and Article 2 of this treaty." And the last one, which is the same thing that my friends from Egypt said, moving towards a Middle East nuclear weapon-free zone. This is the initiation made by Iran at first, and now most of the countries in the region are accepting the fact, let's get rid of this inhuman weapon, at least in our own region. If we cannot do it in the whole world, but we can make it in our region, West Asia, Middle East. And I hope that the countries can move in this direction to make sure that we will not face any disastrous wars again. Thank you very much.